Tonight, America is watching a situation that could push tensions with Iran to a dangerous new level. Donald Trump has reportedly ordered the U.S. military to shoot and kill Iranian boats accused of threatening key oil routes, and now fears of a major confrontation are spreading fast across the world. Stay tuned, like and subscribe as we dive into the main story.
President Trump issuing a new warning to Iran, posting orders to the Navy to, quote, shoot and kill any boat mining the Strait of Hormuz. It comes after the Iranian regime began attacking and seizing commercial ships in the strait, posting this video claiming to show its commandos boarding them, hours after President Trump extended the ceasefire with Iran.
Their military is totally defeated. They're outside of the little wise guy ships. I call them the wise guy ships.
And as the president is choking Iran's economy with his naval blockade to pressure the regime to make a deal. Overnight, U.S. troops boarding a sanctioned ship carrying Iranian oil in the Indian Ocean.
If they don't want to make a deal, then I'll finish it up militarily.
Does that mean Americans should anticipate spending more on gasoline for the foreseeable future?
For a little while. And you know what they get for that? You know what they get for that? Iran without a nuclear weapon that's going to try and blow up one of our cities or blow up the entire Middle East.
The New York Times reporting new details tonight about the health of Iran's new Ayatollah, badly injured in the same strike that killed his father and neither seen nor heard in public since. 4 senior Iranian officials claim he was gravely wounded but is mentally sharp and engaged after 3 leg surgeries. His face and lips burned severely, making it difficult to speak, and that access to him is extremely difficult, so generals are the key decision makers in Iran.
They have all new leadership and they're fighting like cats and dogs for who's going to control, because we've created a real mess for them.
Late today, the president meeting with ambassadors from Israel and Lebanon as he looks to cement the ceasefire his administration brokered.
What we just watched shows that one thing immediately becomes clear. This is no longer just another political statement designed to dominate headlines for one day. What we are witnessing now is a moment that could reshape how millions of Americans view global security, military power, and the possibility of another international confrontation involving the United States. The tension in this story is not only coming from the words themselves, but from the weight behind them. Because when a former and current political heavyweight like Donald Trump publicly talks about ordering the U.S. military to shoot and kill Iranian boats accused of threatening key waterways, people across America do not hear that as ordinary political language. They hear the possibility of escalation. They hear uncertainty. And many are now wondering how far this situation could go if tensions continue rising. The video instantly triggered reactions online because it touched one of the most sensitive issues in global politics right now: the relationship between the United States and Iran. This is not a small regional disagreement taking place quietly in the background. This is a conflict dynamic tied directly to oil prices, military strategy, global trade routes, national security, and the fear of a larger Middle East confrontation that could drag multiple countries into a dangerous chain reaction. That is why this moment has exploded across social media and news discussions in America. People understand that statements involving military action in the Strait of Hormuz carry consequences far beyond politics. What makes this situation significant is the location being discussed. The Strait of Hormuz is not just another stretch of water somewhere in the Middle East. It is one of the most important oil transportation routes on the planet. Massive amounts of global oil shipments move through that narrow waterway every single day. If tensions increase there, the effects can spread quickly to gas stations, financial markets, shipping industries, and ordinary consumers thousands of miles away in the United States. This is why Americans pay attention whenever conflict involving Iran begins escalating around that region. Many people remember previous moments when instability in the Middle East caused fuel prices to surge almost overnight. And this is where the story becomes bigger than politics alone. The average American family may not spend time studying military strategy or international diplomacy, but they immediately understand rising fuel costs, inflation pressure, and economic uncertainty. They understand what happens when groceries become more expensive or transportation costs increase. So even though this story involves military language and foreign policy, many Americans are processing it through the lens of their everyday lives. They are asking a very practical question. If tensions continue rising between the United States and Iran, how will it affect us here at home? Another reason this story is spreading so aggressively online is because of Donald Trump's communication style. Whether people support him or oppose him, one thing cannot be denied: his statements rarely sound cautious or diplomatic. He speaks in direct, forceful language that instantly dominates political conversation. Supporters often see that as strength and decisiveness. Critics see it as dangerous escalation. But either way, the result is the same: massive attention. And in today's media environment, attention moves fast. The moment clips from that statement began circulating online, people immediately started debating what it truly means and whether the rhetoric could eventually influence real military decisions. This situation also highlights something deeper happening inside American politics right now. National security conversations are becoming increasingly emotional and polarized. Foreign policy used to be discussed mainly through strategic briefings, diplomatic language, and official statements carefully designed to avoid panic. But now geopolitical issues are unfolding in the same highly charged environment as social media battles and election campaigns. That changes how people react. Instead of calmly analyzing complex international developments, many audiences immediately split into political camps. Some cheer aggressive rhetoric. Others fear it. And that emotional divide shapes the entire national conversation. There is also another layer to this story that deserves attention. Iran and the United States have had decades of hostility, mistrust, and confrontation. This did not begin recently. The tensions stretch back through multiple administrations, multiple military incidents, sanctions, proxy conflicts, and diplomatic breakdowns. So when strong military language resurfaces now, it activates years of accumulated tension between both sides. People who follow global affairs understand that even small incidents in that region can escalate quickly if leaders respond aggressively to one another. What many viewers may not immediately realize is how fragile international stability can become during moments like this. Military encounters at sea are unpredictable. A single misunderstanding, miscalculation, or confrontation can spiral into something much larger than originally intended. That is why military analysts and foreign policy observers often worry about rhetoric escalating faster than diplomacy. Once nations begin projecting force publicly, backing away becomes politically difficult because leaders fear appearing weak to their supporters or rivals. At the same time, supporters of Trump argue that strong language is necessary to deter threats. They believe projecting overwhelming military readiness discourages hostile actions from adversaries like Iran. From that perspective, tough rhetoric is seen as a strategic warning rather than a direct step toward conflict. Many Americans who prioritize national security strongly believe that showing hesitation can invite greater danger. So this debate is not simply about one statement. It reflects a broader argument about how America should handle geopolitical threats in an increasingly unstable world. This raises important questions about how modern political communication influences public anxiety. In previous decades, military strategy discussions often remained confined to government officials and formal briefings. Today, dramatic clips spread instantly across TikTok, YouTube, X, and television. Millions of people consume fragments of information within seconds, often without deeper context. That creates a climate where fear, outrage, and speculation can spread faster than facts. And once emotions take over online discourse, the atmosphere becomes even more volatile. One thing that stands out in this situation is how quickly Americans connected the story to economic fears. The moment military tensions involving Iran trend online, conversations about oil prices immediately follow. That reaction shows how deeply economic stress has shaped public consciousness in America right now. Many households are already struggling with inflation, housing costs, debt, and financial uncertainty. So when people hear about instability in a region tied to global oil supply, they instantly worry about another wave of financial pressure. This is why geopolitical stories now resonate differently with ordinary audiences. In the past, foreign conflicts sometimes felt distant to average Americans. But after years of economic instability and global disruptions, people increasingly understand that international events can quickly affect daily life at home. A confrontation thousands of miles away can eventually influence prices, jobs, transportation, and overall economic confidence. That interconnected reality is shaping how Americans react to stories like this. Another important aspect of this situation is the psychological effect of constant global tension. Americans have spent years moving from one major crisis to another: pandemics, wars, inflation fears, political division, border debates, cyber threats, and economic uncertainty. So when another high-stakes international story emerges, many people feel emotionally exhausted before even processing the details. There is a growing sense among portions of the public that the world feels increasingly unstable. Stories involving military escalation reinforce that perception. At the same time, social media amplifies fear-driven narratives because dramatic content spreads faster than calm analysis. Videos with explosive wording generate more clicks, more reactions, and more engagement. That creates an environment where nuance often disappears. People begin viewing complex geopolitical situations as simple battles between strength and weakness, patriotism and betrayal, peace and war. But reality is usually far more complicated than viral clips suggest. What makes the current moment especially sensitive is the broader international backdrop. Multiple regions around the world are already dealing with instability and conflict. Governments are watching one another carefully, alliances are shifting, and military readiness has become a major topic globally. In that atmosphere, every major statement from American leadership carries enormous symbolic weight. Allies pay attention. Rivals pay attention. Financial markets pay attention. Even ordinary citizens across different countries monitor these developments closely because they understand how quickly global situations can change. Another reason this story has gained traction is because many Americans are trying to predict what the future could look like if tensions continue increasing. People are asking whether this is simply political rhetoric or the beginning of a more aggressive foreign policy direction. And this story combines all three. There's also a generational element to how audiences respond. Older Americans who lived through previous Middle East conflicts often react with caution because they remember the long-term consequences of war. Younger audiences, especially those consuming information primarily through social media, may experience the story more through viral clips and online reactions than historical context. That difference influences how people interpret the seriousness of the moment. This situation also highlights the growing overlap between politics and entertainment in modern media culture. Dramatic political moments are now consumed almost like blockbuster events. Clips are edited, reposted, reacted to, and debated non-stop across platforms. The line between political communication and viral spectacle has become increasingly blurred. That creates both opportunity and danger. It increases engagement, but it can also oversimplify issues involving real-world consequences. One of the most important questions Americans are now debating is whether aggressive rhetoric actually prevents conflict or increases the risk of it. Some argue that projecting strength discourages hostile actions because adversaries fear retaliation. Others believe inflammatory language can escalate tensions unnecessarily and reduce opportunities for diplomacy. Both perspectives exist strongly within American society right now, and this story has reignited that debate in a major way. Another factor driving attention is public curiosity about military capability and preparedness. Whenever stories involving Iran and the U.S. military trend online, audiences become interested in naval power, strategic positioning, and defense operations in the Middle East. Many people who rarely follow military affairs suddenly begin researching locations like the Strait of Hormuz and trying to understand why those areas matter globally. At its core, this story reflects something larger about the modern world. Global stability increasingly feels fragile. Economic systems, energy markets, military alliances, and political tensions are deeply interconnected. A statement made during a political discussion in America can influence conversations across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East within minutes. That level of interconnectedness means local political moments can quickly become international stories. What stands out most is the emotional atmosphere surrounding this situation. People are not reacting calmly or neutrally. They are reacting emotionally because the story touches fear, patriotism, uncertainty, and political identity all at once. For some viewers, the rhetoric sounds reassuring because it signals strength. For others, it sounds alarming because it suggests escalation. That emotional split explains why the story is dominating discussions so intensely online. This also raises broader questions about leadership communication during high-tension international moments. How leaders speak matters because words influence expectations, reactions, and public perception. In international affairs, language itself can become part of strategy. Statements are analyzed not only for what they say directly, but for the signals they send to allies, opponents, financial markets, and the public. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans continue watching closely because they understand the stakes could eventually reach beyond headlines. Many people simply want stability. They want lower prices, economic confidence, and less global uncertainty. So whenever tensions involving major powers escalate, public anxiety naturally grows. As this story continues developing, one thing is certain. Americans are paying attention not just because of the dramatic language, but because the situation represents something much bigger. It represents the fragile balance between military power and diplomacy, between political messaging and real-world consequences, between national security and economic stability. And perhaps that is the most important takeaway from all of this. The world has entered a period where international tensions no longer feel distant to ordinary citizens. People now understand that geopolitical conflicts can influence their lives quickly and directly. That awareness changes how stories like this are received. They are no longer viewed as isolated foreign policy moments. They are viewed as potential turning points that could affect everyday life. As millions continue debating the implications of Trump's remarks, the deeper issue remains unresolved. In a world already filled with instability, how should powerful nations communicate strength without pushing tensions closer to the edge? That question may ultimately matter far more than any single viral clip.